We are live. Hey everyone, thank you for waiting. If you've got the tweet or notification, or if you saw this on Facebook or Instagram or again Twitter, welcome to Zenny62 live tonight. And tonight is a special, very special night because once again I'm having my friend on. And
good evening from Florida's capital city of Tallahassee.
Excuse me. He and I are going to talk National Signing Day. We're going to do so with one voice. We get a cacophony of voices around here. Things push the button, things go one way or they go the other. But the one thing's for certain is he is as constant as a Northern Star. He is your Alabama beat reporter. And my friend, the man who is, for all practical purposes, your constant information god about Alabama football, in particular, Alabama sports, although he covers other sports as well, and the NFL draft, which is where we met many years ago, right, APP? I would say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can't remember how long ago.
Yeah. AP Steadham, he's the man whose name is on the title of this live stream. And welcome, my friend. How are you?
Hey, great to be here. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you. Hey, thank you for having the courage to come back. And Excel Generation says Tallahassee, Florida. Excel, are you asking if we're coming from Tallahassee, or if are you declaring that you are from Tallahassee? If you are declaring that you are from Tallahassee, I say welcome to Zenny62. Love to hear what you think about I believe that would be Florida State, right? But we'll get there. Right now, AP represents, for all practical purposes, the national champions, the Alabama Crimson Tide. And so before we talk about the Crimson Tide's nemesis in the SEC, what do you think of National Signing Day, AP, from the perspective of what the Crimson Tide did?
Yeah, I think it was a fair, pretty good day for them. They've been number one the last, half a dozen years or even more. So some of the services had them ranked sixth. They fell short. They wanted one extra receiver and a defensive lineman, and they wanted to sign a quarterback. But because they have a starting quarterback who's going to be a junior, and the freshman who came in to win the game in the second half to be a sophomore, they found it difficult to recruit another quarterback. But they do have one that they recruited last year as a freshman as well. So they have three quarterbacks, and they're going to get a legacy walk-on, Jay Barker's son, Braxton Barker. He's going to be a preferred walk-on as a quarterback. But overall, I think Alabama had the defensive backfield. They were losing 5 or 6 people, so they signed 5 defensive backs. One, actually, who played at LSU as a freshman. Things did not work out. Went to junior college, Gulf Coast Junior College, and he was the #1 junior college cornerback in the country. He signed with Alabama. Then they had Patrick Surtain Jr. Some of you might be familiar with Patrick Surtain Jr. from Southern Miss, who played for the Miami Dolphins and the Kansas City Chiefs. Played in a handful of Pro Bowls. So he signed with Alabama. He's a #1 cornerback coming out of high school. So they fared well in that department. They got some big defensive linemen, a couple of receivers, and some edge rushers. So overall, I thought Alabama did quite well, but they just fell short with a few numbers at certain positions.
There was an explosion on Twitter, thank you for that, AP, that in particular caught my attention, probably yours, a person by the name of Tyson Campbell, who just shot up to the point where, and excuse me for that music is not, hold on a second. That music is not to introduce Tyson Campbell directly. It was to look up more on Tyson Campbell as I was talking with AP about him. But the simple fact of the matter is that Mr. Campbell, Tyson Campbell, was thought to be headed to Alabama, if I'm not mistaken.
He was a player that Alabama coveted. Yes, and Alabama coveted not only him, who played at the same high school as Patrick Surtain, Junior American Heritage High School. And by the way, Patrick Surtain Sr. was the coach.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Is the coach.
Mm-hmm.
So they were looking at a couple of cornerbacks from Southern California. I think both of them signed with USC. And then they also were looking at the two cornerbacks from American Heritage in Fort Lauderdale.
So basically, what was it? Because I'm reading here, this is now NCAA CBS. It says it didn't come with a lot of work, though, talking about the highest rated classes. And it mentions that that they got some steals from Alabama. Five-star linebacker Quay Walker, number 31 overall from Alabama, and four-star linebacker Otis Reese from Michigan. And it says five-star corner was once considered a favorite for LSU in Miami, but he went to Georgia. Does this mean that Georgia is going to supplant Alabama as the SEC champion? Well, excuse me, as the national champion, because technically, and this is where things get dicey, because of the way the SEC is designed, Alabama didn't get a chance to actually beat Georgia for the SEC championship, right?
Correct. They did not win the Western Division.
Now, however, they did beat them for the national championship. So shouldn't there be some sort of, I mean, I have to ask this. We talked about this briefly before, but no, actually, we didn't finish the conversation. So I want to wrap this mini conversation in a small bow and ask you, does this officially mean that Alabama should be considered the SEC champion, and are higher ups at the SEC talking about how to really look at this, or how should it be looked at?
Well, the SEC is 14 teams right now, Zenny. Mm-hmm. And they had the addition of Texas A&M and Missouri, which made it 14. So you have the two divisions, and they play 8 conference games a year. So that means that you don't play 5 other teams potentially, right? If you might play a team that twice during the year and once in the championship game. So I always tell people that the Big 12 has a true champion because they have 10 teams. They play each other, so that's 9 games. And then they have to end up playing another team twice because they have a championship. And I think they should have left well alone, because if you have an undefeated champion who wins all 9 of the games in the conference, they might have to beat someone twice and lose, and then they might get knocked out of the college football playoff situation. But they didn't feel that they were being recognized, because the year that Baylor and TCU each had 1 loss, and they're ranked 4th and 6th, I think, at the time. The last poll, they were both left out, and I think Ohio State jumped them. So, but I always tell people that the SEC really doesn't have a true champion, because you're only playing 8 games, and then you play the 9th game as your championship game. So Alabama has been fortunate a few times now, because they did not win the Western Division one year, and they ended up being number 2 and played LSU in their own division for the BCS championship in New Orleans and beat them. So this has happened to Alabama twice.
Jeez,
Ended up playing an SEC team for the national championship.
What in your view should be done about this?
I don't know if there's much to do about it, Zenny, because the mission of the College Football Selection Committee is to select the 4 best teams. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the year, Alabama had the 1 loss, the last game against Auburn. So consequently, the Tigers won the SEC Western Division, and they had just beaten Georgia with the second to the last game, or the third to the last game, and then they had to beat Georgia again in the SEC championship game, and they could not do it twice. So they were knocked out of the title game. So that was their worst nightmare. Their biggest rival, Alabama, and their other biggest rival is Georgia. That's the oldest rivalry in the South, I believe, Auburn, Georgia.
Mm-hmm. Now, which one of those is between the hedges, or is that's Florida?
Georgia.
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 Okay, Florida, Georgia.
No. That's Georgia is between the hedges. Is in Athens.
Oh, Athens. Okay, Athens.
Yeah, yeah, their home field, right? Correct.
And which one is the world's largest cocktail party, or are they all the world's largest cocktail party?
Right, right. They all are, right? But it's Jacksonville when Florida and Georgia get together.
That's it. Okay, that's what I want to go to. I want to have a margarita. Can you have a margarita there? Is that? I mean,
I'm not really. Yeah, yeah. I haven't been to that game, Zenny.
Wow, what? Unbelievable! I would have thought.
Well,
Well, actually, you're an Alabama guy.
yeah,
Why would you go to the game? That's true.
yeah,
I stand corrected. All right. Hey,
yeah.
what do you think that this recruiting class? I mean, talk more about the recruiting class first of all. But what do you think it says about where Alabama football is today, considering what Georgia did?
Yeah, well, I think Georgia, see, has always been a dominant state for talent. The Big Ten recruits there. Even USC comes across the country to get players. The SEC, the ACC, the Big East used to be down there, which is now they have the American Athletic Conference. But there's leagues all over the country scouring the state of Georgia for players. So if you can be a mastermind and corral the best players to stay in the state of Georgia, you're going to have, and then can coach them and develop them, you're going to have a top-level team. You're going to contend for the national title every year.
So basically what you're saying to me is that for the first time in a long time in Georgia, they finally have been able to be masters of their in the process of accessing their own talent in their own state.
Absolutely. They have so many players in the Atlanta area. It's unbelievable. They're like Los Angeles. The football coaches who are at Georgia Tech drive by more talent when they go to the office, and some coaches driving around their entire state.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not.
That's unusual. Hey, so we're looking at Alabama football signs 5 student athletes on National Signing Day, and those of you listening to this might be saying, "Hey, Zinni, you're a Cal Bear. How come you're not talking about Cal?" I'm going to get there, but my buddy is one of the preeminent reporters for the Alabama Crimson Tide. They're the national champions. So, how often do I get a chance to have this discussion with anybody, let alone a friend of mine who just happens to be in that position, right? So, I happen to be reading, or at least skimming over this. It's Cadence Bank Countdown to Kickoff. This is on RollTide.com, and it says Alabama football signs 5 student athletes on National Signing Day, and it says that the 5 players signing, I'd like your comment on them. Tight end Michael Parker, Alabama, Florida defensive back Patrick Surtain, which you talked about, Louisiana defensive back Eddie Smith, South Carolina linebacker Jalen Moody, and Texas wide receiver Jalen Waddy. And we talked about, I think those are the names you brought up a little bit before. But, talk about what you know about these guys, any one of them or all of them.
Yeah, we'll go first to Eddie Smith. He's a 3-star player from Slidell, Louisiana. And, before Nick Saban arrived, Alabama could not get a player out of that state. It'd been since Coach Bryant had a center named Steve Mott many years ago. And they came up dry all the time with all those different coaches that were trying to recruit. Gene Stallings, he knew he wouldn't go down there, and Mike DuBose and Ray Perkins and Bill Curry, Dennis Franchione. They could not get any players from that state. But Louisiana has been really great to Alabama since Nick Saban arrived. And Eddie Smith is 6 feet tall. He likes to get cornerbacks that have some size and length, because the receivers are so big now. So I think Eddie Smith, he's very versatile, could play cornerback, safety, could be used in the return game. He's one of these up-and-coming players that has the physical ability, and just have to coach him in his technique, and I think he's going to be an outstanding player. Then they signed a running back, Jerome Ford, out of Florida. He's similar. People have watched Alabama through Josh Jacobs, who's there now. He's versatile. He can catch the ball. He's about 200 pounds, 5'11", 4-star player from Sefner, Florida. The next player I wanted to talk about was the tight end, Michael Parker. He was one of these that was not the highest listed player in that position on the board for Alabama, but it ended up where a tight end that they were looking at from Louisiana, Glenn Beal, ended up signing with Texas A&M. So they took the in-state player Michael Parker. He has a good size, 6'6", 230 pounds. And Zenny, as you know, I mean, the first year as a freshman, even if you don't even lift weights, you're probably going to gain 15 pounds. So he'll put on 20 pounds. He'll be 6'6", probably able to carry 250, 260 pounds, no problem.
Is he still growing?
Good hands and yeah, I don't know, but 6'6" is plenty tall. 6'5" is plenty tall to tight end.
Yeah, but he's a freshman, right?
Say that again, Zen?
And he's a freshman, so.
Right, he'll be a freshman at Alabama coming in. Yes.
So, is it a stretch to say that maybe he'll put on another inch and grow to 6'7"?
Oh, that can happen. There have been people who have grown after their 18th birthday for sure, but
yeah.
I couldn't speculate one way or the other, but that can happen. The receiver, Jalen Waddle out of Texas, he's 5'9.5". He's kind of one of these elusive players that you can never tackle him. He's good on the punt returns and kickoffs, and he's dynamic when he gets the ball in his hands. So that was a good pickup for Alabama, a 4-star player. One of the few players to come out of Texas to come east.
Yeah.
So Alabama was lucky to get him. Then we spoke about Patrick Surtain Jr., the number one cornerback in the entire country. So I think that's all the players that signed yesterday, I believe.
Yeah, the list is.
Jalen Moody, the
right.
Inside linebacker from Conway, South Carolina.
Yeah,
he's an up and coming ball player, has some ability. So that's a good pickup for Alabama as well.
How long does it take? Let me ask this from another perspective. When does a coach like Nick Saban start the recruiting process? Because the lay view is that the coach goes into the living room with the parent maybe a month before it makes a decision. But how does it really work?
Well, Alabama starts looking at the players when they're, ninth grade. They have all these prospects come to camps, and they're in touch with them and sending out letters and communication. And so it's something that is very in-depth, and the evaluation process is lengthy. And by the time it gets to that senior year, you hope you know quite a bit about that player, not only on the field, but off the field as well.
And let's go through the rankings before I ask more questions. But this is according to Sports Illustrated, this ranking. Mm-hmm. And it has Georgia number 1, Ohio State number 2, Texas number 3, USC number 4, Penn State number 5, Alabama number 7, Clemson number 6, Alabama number 7, Miami number 8, Oklahoma number 9, Notre Dame 10, Florida State 11, Auburn 12, Washington 13, Florida 14, LSU 15, Oregon 16, Texas A&M 17, UCLA 18, South Carolina 19, Tennessee 20, Michigan 21, Nebraska 22, Virginia Tech 24, the North Carolina 23, Virginia Tech 24, TCU 25, North Carolina State 26, Mississippi State 27, Maryland 28, Louisville 29, Baylor 30, Ole Miss 31, Michigan State 32, Oklahoma State 33, Utah 34.
Can I stop you? Can I stop you for 1 second?
Yes, absolutely.
You saw that Michigan State number 32.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Michigan State number 32.
They've beaten Michigan, 8 out of the last 10 years, I think?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Michigan
so
State.
you're getting players way below normally what Michigan recruits ranking wise.
Wow.
But you're beating teams, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So how does the Central Florida beat let's say an Auburn?
That's a question I can't answer. Better coaching, perhaps. Better.
You mean they develop their players? They get the prospects that have potential. Maybe they're long and have ability, but
right.
They need to grow
right.
mentally and physically. Put on some weight and stay there for 5 years. They have that red shirt season
mm-hmm.
to grow and mature. So these rankings are nice, Annie,
mm-hmm.
but But I remember years ago when Notre Dame was always the number one recruiting
I remember that too.
squad. The team.
Yep.
But they never could produce the teams.
No, absolutely right. But I'll explain why I'm going through this. Aside from the fact that it's a ranking, Utah 34, West Virginia 35, Minnesota 36, Arizona State 37, Kentucky 38, Stanford 39, Iowa 40, Vanderbilt 41, Missouri 42, Cal 43, Wisconsin 44, Washington State 45, Pittsburgh 46, Cincinnati 47, Indiana 48, Purdue 49, and Syracuse 50. That's the top 50. Now, why did I go through all of them? Well, first of all, because I went to Cal. And I wanted everybody to know where we stood. And then my other buddies went to Stanford, and they're going to ask, hey, where did Stanford fall? So that, now, you could turn this another way, and you could basically say, you mean your schools suck, and you basically waited and made us hear you recite all of these names just so that you could go down to basically the bottom part of the 50 into like the 40s? And my answer would be, yeah, I did, okay? Guilty as charged. I did do that. But we come down, kidding aside. I also wanted to enter the conversation that you started midway through my recitation of the Sports Illustrated rankings, and that what difference does this really make? And how can you say, because every school, I haven't seen a school ever in my life say, our recruiting class sucked. Have you? Everyone says their recruiting class is fantastic.
Yeah, the coach comes to the podium, and unless he kind of couches it in terms of, well, we missed on a few positions, they're not going to disparage their own efforts as a staff.
No, it's like saying, fire me now. Right?
Right. So, every recruiting class and coach is always saying, gee, we missed on this player. But, Alabama recruited plenty of players to help them have a contending team.
Hey, is there any player that got away from Alabama, you may have mentioned, but deserves mentioning again if you have not, even if you have, who we should watch out for? Somebody that you thought, okay, that person's coming to Alabama, instead they went to this other school. Any player like that?
Oh, there was a defensive tackle out of Texas. I believe his last name was Brown. I think it's Bobby Brown. He went to Texas A&M. And then there's a wide receiver, the number one player in the state, Justin Ross, and he 6'4", 200 pounds. He went to Clemson.
Wow. Is the fact that he went to Clemson? I wonder if the fact that he went to Clemson instead of Alabama, the reason why Clemson finished ahead of Alabama in the Sports Illustrated rankings. Not that Sports Illustrated has the only rankings out there. For example, if I click on ESPN, let's see what they report. They have Best of National Signing Day, and I've got to get ready because I clicked on their page, and when you click on the ESPN page, sometimes you get a video that plays whether you want it to or not. And I'm waiting for this thing to scroll open, and I'm like, okay, so wait a minute. Oh, good. The video is on mute, so I can avoid that one. It has the rankings, does ESPN, of the top 100 signings, which I think will put a slightly different picture on who got the best one, and also give more value to what AP has said. Not that it doesn't have any value at all, quite the contrary. It says rank. They have the top signing, number 5, Patrick Surtain to Alabama, and then next Tyson Campbell to Georgia, both cornerbacks.
Yes.
Imagine if Alabama had gotten both of them. Wow. That
would have been incredible because that's part of Nick Saban's defense, to really try to lock down people in the back end of your defense, and so you can put pressure on the quarterback.
And then number 3 here listed is OT offensive tackle Nicholas Freire, who went to Ohio State. And then they've got Devon Williams to USC, wide receiver Jacob Copeland to Florida, and offensive guard William Barnes of North Carolina, Tommy Bush, wide receiver to Georgia. USC got cornerback O.J. Griffin, Quay Walker, the linebacker, went to Georgia. Justin Ross, wide receiver you were talking about, went to Clemson. Tanner McGee, quarterback, went to Stanford. Yeah, that's what they have listed, Stanford. And Jalen.
Yeah, it's good pickup.
Wow. How about that? You know, Stanford, isn't it amazing how Stanford always manages to get the great quarterback?
Well, believe it or not, Zenny, Stanford also picked up a quarterback, if you look up their list, by the name of Jack West.
I'm going to do that right now.
He is from the town. He's from the town that I live in, where I live right now here in Alabama.
National.
I saw him play. Big, strong quarterback, about 6'3" or 4.
I'm going there right now. Stanford National Signing Day, and let's see here. Stanford Cardinal football. The headlines for Tanner McGee, but I'm scrolling down here. It says live update: Stanford football 2018 National Signing Day. And as I scroll down, or wait for this page to open so I can scroll down.
Yeah, they signed 2 players right from this area, and one of them was a defensive player, one was an offensive player.
Yeah, so we've got here the Cardinal roster. It says check back here, final pieces, but it doesn't. Oh, that's wild. It says that the bootleg is tracking the. You know, this page. I apologize for folks. This page is not what is not presenting what it said it was going to present. It promised live updates, and basically it said absolutely nothing. So that was a waste of time. Sorry about that, folks. We'll go over here to diehards.com. I should have went to the bootleg, but I didn't. And Stanford Diehards grading Stanford's 2018 recruiting class after National Signing Day. And scroll down, and there's a picture of my friend, Coach David Shaw. Have you met David Shaw, by the way?
Yes, I've spoken to him at the draft a number of times. Yeah, I really enjoy our conversations.
What do you think of him?
Yeah, I like him. He runs an offense that's tough-minded. He throws to the tight end. He doesn't have the best talent, but I think that his teams usually don't make turnovers, and it's very similar to an SEC-type team.
Okay, so on offense, it says Stanford scored Major Hall. Tanner McGee chose the Cardinal on National Signing Day. He's described as a 4-star quarterback, and says that he will be eligible to start in 2020 after he completes a 2-year mission. So that will open it up. It says follow 4-star prospect Michael Wilson, and it says he comes from another Southern California talent factory in Chaminade, and that is Matter D, and they're talking about defense. They don't have the full one, so I'm trying to get more information on the gentleman you're talking about. And you want to talk more about him while I'm looking that up to get a nice list. His
name is Jack West.
Jack West. Okay.
And then the defensive player, I think, is Andreas Fox. I think something like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so I've got Jack West. They're all over Tanner McGee, even though he's going off to. He's a futures, and right, here we go. Football press conference, National Signing Day from the Stanford Daily, which I will count on to have their act together in a way that other websites have not. As I read this, and as I scroll down, it says that we have the Coach Shaw talks about how special the day is to him, and then they have, among other things, folks, a video of Stanford football card classic 18 Jack West, and what this is what Coach Shaw says about Mr. West, who you were talking about, AP. Coach Shaw's quoted as saying, "We've been recruiting Jack for a long time." Shaw said of his future signal caller, "He's such a great fit for our football team, for our school, a true leader, an athlete, and an accurate passer. We're so excited about him." You want to follow up on that?
One of his receivers from a year or two ago is Velus Jones, who plays at USC.
Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah, but Jack's about what are they listing at? 6'4", maybe 210, something like that.
Yeah, I'm looking for the information here now. They've got.
Yeah, he has good height, pocket presence, accurate, strong arm, but he just fits that mold. He looks like an Andrew Luck type when he throws the football.
If you had to bet, who would you say would start first, or be the person Stanford football is most recognized for? Jack West or Tanner McGee? And the reason I ask that is because Tanner McGee is going to take his first 2 years and go off on a mission.
Right.
Which is Jack West is not going to do that. So,
Right, yeah. So I would think Jack is going to have every opportunity to play and start for Stanford.
So Jack West, should we pencil him in as the NFL guy? So basically we say Jack West for the NFL in 4 years, maybe 4 years. And then Tanner McGee is kind of the insurance guy, right? Because he's taking 2 years off. I mean, you ever heard of a player that takes 2 years off and then he comes back in and he starts? Doesn't that hurt, or does it? You go off on a mission like that? AP? Hello? I think we lost AP. Let me try to get AP back. Somehow we lost AP. Let's see here. Let me try getting him back. While we get AP back here, and I call. 1 second. Let's see here. And AP?
I'm back, Teddy.
Yeah, we lost you somehow. Don't know how that happened, but we lost you. At any rate,
yes.
I was talking about Jack West, and I was saying, have you ever known of a situation where a blue chip player took his first year or 2 years off and then came back and started and basically, it then came back and started. In other words, there was nobody else in the intervening years to take his position, and so he came right in when he finished his mission and started. Maybe, who would that be? Anybody come to mind?
No, it has to be a player from Brigham Young or Utah, probably. I mean, it could be from some other schools, but I'm not aware.
So you would say that is it fair to say that Tanner McGee is taking a big risk with his football future by doing this?
No, because he has a lot of faith in himself, I'm sure, and he doesn't feel that that's going to slow up his development. It just gives him time to grow and get stronger.
Let me see what other comments have. And Barry Lee says, you can say that you have the best recruiting class, but without a good coach and work ethic, it's got to pan out on the field. Do you agree with that, AP?
Absolutely. You must have the R&D, the recruiting and the development. That's what Nick Saban does better than most coaches.
Oh, and AP was kind enough to write a comment on the board here, and he writes, last year, Tosh Lupolo lured #1 player and running back Najee Harris, Antioch High School, California, and Hawaii High School quarterback I never get his name pronounced correctly, last name. Can you do that for me, please?
Tungo Vailoa, that's the way I say it.
Tungo Vailoa, I'll borrow that. Tua Tungo Vailoa. Tosh Lupolo is now with Alabama, is that right?
But Tosh played at the University of California.
Yep, I remember him.
Played at LaSalle, and I don't think he lost the game in high school. And then he played at the University of California, pretty good player there. And then he coached there at Cal. Then he went to the University of Washington. Had some issues up there. Came to the University of Alabama as an analyst, and he just was named, I think, in the last 24 hours, or will be, the co-defensive coordinator at Alabama.
Congratulations for him. I mean, that is to him and for him, because the Tosh that I never had the pleasure of meeting, we were at Cal when he was a coach and I was on the Alumni Association board, was a man who was known back then as a top flight recruiter. But what happened to him? You said he had some issues, but as I recall, it sounded, I don't recall exactly what happened, but it sounded to me like he was unfairly judged. Am I reading that wrong?
I don't know if he was unfairly judged. All I know is he had something going on at the University of Washington, and he ended up at Alabama.
Okay. But where he is finally getting a chance to show how talented he is because he's now co-defensive coordinator. That's
no penalties were handed down by the NCAA or anything like that. So I mean they're usually investigating people pretty thorough.
Yeah.
So
I remember it was thought of he had some issues at Cal. I didn't get too deep into that. I remember thinking that perhaps he was being unfairly looked at by people who perhaps didn't have Cal's best interest in mind in general. But
there were some accusations made about paying for a tutoring for an online course for a student, potential student.
And I thought that was questionable at best. Now that I remember it, okay, you know what? Great for him. Congratulations to the man. I'm very happy for him. I am sorry. As I recall things, I'm sorry now that my memory comes into formation that we didn't fight to keep him and we didn't stand behind him. That's what bothered me. That as we didn't do that as an institution, which we have a tendency not to do, which explains why we let a lot of talented people get away talking about my University of California Golden Bears. So,
Yeah, but that happened at University of Washington. But I don't know. I mean, they probably was paid more money to go to the University of Washington instead of coaching at his alma mater, Cal. But
that's what I mean. There was talk about him at Cal in a way that I thought was negative, which I don't want to repeat. But it ended in Cal not retaining him and him going to Washington for more money. And I thought back then, why are we letting go of the guy who was under Jeff Tedford, arguably our best recruiter? And I think, among other things, I think he was the guy that brought in Aaron Rodgers, if I'm not mistaken. He goes back a ways with Cal. So,
Yeah, I'm not sure. I wouldn't doubt it, though.
Point is, extremely talented person, and I'm massively upset that he's now with the Crimson Tide and not with Cal. But it just shows you that.
Yeah.
It just shows you the rightness of the world when someone that talented winds up with the national champion Crimson Tide. That's just the way things should work. That really is.
And then he becomes the co-defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
He started out as an analyst at Alabama, so that's
co-defensive coordinator.
That shows that he matured and developed as a coach.
That's the story of the day. I mean, not that we don't have other stories. That's an incredible story. So we also have, now we were talking about Tanner McGee, and we have Jason Waddle listed here of Alabama, and also then Maurice Washington, say that 3 times real fast, going to Nebraska. And so the class rankings for ESPN, they have Georgia number 1, Ohio State number 2, Texas number 3, Penn State 4, Clemson 5, Alabama 6, Miami 7, USC 8, whereas USC was ranked 4th in the Sports Illustrated poll, and they have Notre Dame ranked 9th, and Oklahoma 10, and that's it. They don't have the full list. So basically, if you're Cal and Stanford, you just don't count. And Gary Hamilton, I don't know if you know Gary Hamilton from ESPN, he tweets, 5-star cornerback Patrick Surtain commits to Alabama over LSU and the Canes. Crimson Tide now on track for a 10th straight ESPN top 3 class. Wow. 10th straight. That's something else. So, also tell me, while we're talking about the Crimson Tide and we've gotten the National Signing Day issue out of the way. I'm going to go, before I do though, I'm going to talk about my sturdy Golden Bear, California Golden Bears, and our recruiting class on National Signing Day, and a tweet that I sent to one of our 21 new Golden Bears. But first of all, Cal football finalizes 21 player recruiting class, and this is by the right source, the Daily Californian, one of the great campus newspapers of all time, or now campus news websites of all time, and written by Christy Aguilar. So she reports that the three newest members are inside linebacker Chris Fatula, outside linebacker Joseph Quinbanjo, and safety Monroe Young, each of whom comes to Berkeley as a three-star athlete according to 24/7 Sports. And we have another big person coming, 6'3", 225. Banjo is from Houston, Texas. Folks, I'm telling you, this person, I mean, he can flat out move. If you ever watch the tape on this guy, AP, I mean, his speed will shock you. So I will say...
I think so.
Sorry,
I think so.
Go ahead. Yeah, I mean, I
think I've seen him.
Yeah. This guy, he just can flat out fly to the ball. In a way that I haven't seen a Cal linebacker do in some time. In fact, not just Ojwambu and Monroe, but also Fatula. That three, that group. If you watch the video on each of them, their speed will shock you, which will lead me to say this is going to be the fastest Cal defense we've had in forever. I mean, they are that fast. And I really can't wait to see how head coach Dave Wilcox employs these young men in the Cal defense for 2018 season and beyond. I'm quite excited to see how they come out in spring practice and what comes out of spring ball and what kind of squad that Cal puts on the field this year. But those are the tops of the 21 new Cal Golden Bear recruits by head coach Dave Wilcox. Any thoughts of Cal players that you may know about? If you don't, that's cool. But I know you're an Alabama guy, but you never know. I'm asking.
No, but I know that Coach Wilcox, he's defensive. That's his forte. Mm-hmm. So if they can shore up their defense, they'd have an advantage over a lot of the teams in that league because it's usually pretty high scoring.
Yeah.
If they can first stop the other teams, get their offense in gear over time, and I think that's an improvement with that program.
We held Stanford to a grand total of 17 points. That's a game we could have won the big game last year. So this big game coming up, it's going to be great. We've got a problem, though, because Bryce Love decided not to go into the NFL draft, decided to return to the farm healthy. So it's going to be fascinating to see what comes out of the Cal-Stanford rivalry for 2018. Moving back to questions about Crimson Tide football, one of your coaches left for the Steelers. You know about that?
Yeah, actually, Carl Dunbar, he played at LSU, and he was with Alabama, and I think something was involved with the pension that they coached so many years there, trying to get back. But the current defensive line coach at the Pittsburgh Steelers is a Alabama legacy, John Mitchell. He was actually the first African-American player to be on the field for the University of Alabama, and it was at Southern California in 1971. He's a defensive end, stand-up linebacker type, and he went on to be a co-captain the next year, make All-American with John Hanna. So not only was he the first African-American player to see action for the University of Alabama, but he was the first African-American co-captain, and then he was the first African-American defensive coordinator in the SEC, and that was done while he was at LSU.
What year was that?
LSU, he was with Mike Archer, so that might have been in the 80s, And then he's been with the Pittsburgh Steelers, I believe, for 20. This is his 20, going into his 25th year. So he's going to be retained, and he's the associate. I mean, he's the, I think it's associate head coach.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He's going to have some other duties, but Carl Dunbar is going to take over as the defensive line coach. So there's a double Alabama connection with that move today.
What does it say about Alabama football that you have not just the Dunbar announcement, but also you have the man who was once the New England Patriots offensive coordinator become the Crimson Tide offensive coordinator, and then in total you seem to have this kind of revolving door between Alabama and the NFL with respect to the coaches. I mean, I'm not talking about the players, just coaches. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, to some degree. And he was not the offensive coordinator at New England Patriots. I think he coached the tight ends.
Okay.
But he went back to Buffalo.
That's right. It was Josh.
I
stand corrected.
In that part of the country, he's actually Canadian originally.
Mm-hmm.
And then Derek Ainsley, he went to the Raiders. Did you see that? The defensive back coach.
Yeah, he did, because it was a listing at first that he was going to. There was one print that turned out not to be the case, that he was going to stay at Alabama and become the defensive coordinator. That was actually a headline, but then and maybe you can help shed light on this, because that didn't happen. But
no, it didn't happen. He went to the Oakland Raiders.
Right. Was there any truth to that headline that he was considered to be defensive coordinator at any time?
Oh, I think that was a possibility. I do think that was a possibility. But he went there, and then Carl Dunbar, so that's 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then they lost Jeremy Pruitt. He became the head coach of Tennessee, so that's 4.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm trying to think. Bobby Williams. He took a position with the University of Oregon. He was an off-the-field coach who'd been Nick Saban's right-hand man and on-the-field coach for many years. So he's back at the University of Oregon as a tight ends coach, I think it is. And I'm trying to think of another coach who left Alabama. I thought there was one more, the 5th coach, who went to, I can't recall now, Vinny, I just escapes my mind, but so they're going to have to replace 5 coaches, I guess it is.
Wow, that's a lot of turnover. How does a guy like Nick Saban do it? I mean, how do you bring in a
Well, he's got them all. He's got them all replaced at this moment, except today. Carl Dunbar left.
Wow, and isn't it a hat trick to be able to replace coaches as Saban does, and yet maintain a certain standard of coaching, standard of preparation, a standard of Alabama football?
Absolutely, and the number one prerequisite, I believe, to becoming a coach at Alabama and Nick Saban's eyes, you must be an excellent recruiter. And
that's obviously, considering his ranking, is what he does. Also, there's an announcement that Alabama football announces the hiring of this goes to what you're talking about, Josh Garrett and then Carl Scott.
That's it. Josh Gaddis. That's it. That's why I can't remember those two.
Josh Gaddis.
He was the wide receiver coach of Penn State, a top recruiter, and then Scott was a good young defensive back coach, and then another coach came from Golding, I believe the way you pronounce it. You can look on the list there. Maybe you have it in front of you. He was hired as well. So, yeah, they got quite a turnover this year, the most ever in one season at Alabama under Nick Saban.
That's going to be interesting to watch. How, from a reporting standpoint, would you look at the Alabama recruiting class and, considering the turnover in coaches, evaluate Alabama this year from the perspective of their ability to repeat as national champions with this stern and drum of coaching change on top of the standard recruiting flow?
Yeah, Nick Saban addressed that point as far as the recruiting, that it probably did affect some of the players that didn't sign on this first Wednesday in February. So that was made known yesterday in the press conference. And now you have to gel as a staff. You have to gel as a staff now to repeat as champion. Of course, there's different players, but with the staff, that's important that you're on the same page and you're able to communicate and make decisions. And come up with alternate plans and adjustments. So that's very important.
Does Nick Saban have his kind of guy? In other words, would you look at a person and say that's a guy that Nick Saban would hire, or this is a guy that, as an assistant under Nick Saban, is expected to do A, B, and C? Is there that kind of standard?
Yeah, there's a high standard at Alabama to perform, to execute, to develop, because he considers football a developmental sport. But I don't think that Nick Saban, the 10 years or so, 10 plus years that I've watched him, he's liable to hire anybody. You saw him hire Lane Kiffin. You saw him hire Steve Sarkisian. These coaches all had some off-the-field issues, but it didn't seem to bother him. And you saw him flirt with Hugh Freeze, the fired Ole Miss coach, just in the last month.
I didn't know that. He was going to bring in Hugh Freeze? Wow.
That still could happen.
Seriously?
But I think that what's holding it up is the commissioner. He could probably be brought in as an offensive analyst.
So what's up with that? Is that some sort of like thumb in the eye move where it's kind of like I know more than you and this guy was treated like crap? Is it a way of Saban basically saying that Hugh Freeze was treated incorrectly and he was caught doing what we all do? I mean, what is that about? Or is it just, hey, forget all that. This guy is a great football coach. Maybe it's that.
I think that he wants to improve his football program, and he's willing to give people second chances.
That's something else. I like that. I mean, I really like that, particularly as a guy who was there when the whole Laramie Tunsil interview thing went down. I was possessing of a front row chair to the Laramie Tunsil interview and got the interview out on Zenny62 on YouTube, AP. And Deadspin picked it up, and it was seen 700,000 times. To which I say,
"Oh my goodness!"
I say thank you to them, sorta, because AP, they took my video, the Deadspin people, right, embedded it in their website, and they didn't credit me. Yet, and then they made fun of me when I complained about it to them, both via email or on Twitter, saying that I don't know how the internet works. Yet on the same doggone page, they credited a video they embedded from ESPN. So in other words, hey, ESPN's like the big white company that deserves to be credited, and I'm like the small black guy that they can just basically take my video, even though I'm a credentialed NFL draft media guy for now oh my Lord, since 2005. Count the number of years. It's getting to the point where I can't count anymore. It's how many years is that? 5, 15, 8, 13 years? No.
13 years, right.
Yeah, 13 years. Okay, 13 years is cover draft credentialed. And they don't respect that. It's like, oh, okay. But the bottom line is, my stuff aside, I watched Laramie Tunsil go through the process of being humiliated because someone put up on Instagram and Twitter a video of him smoking a bong in a gas mask. To this day, why he was doing that, I don't know. But they did it. And during the interview, one of the beat reporters who seemed to have a thing for, and I don't say this in a positive way, I mean in a negative way, you seem to have a beef with Tunsil, was all over this and asked if Hugh Freeze gave him money, and Tunsil said he did. Did you see that? Did you see my video, AP?
Yes, I did. I did see the video. I most certainly did.
I mean, what'd you think about that situation with Hugh Freeze? Or can you say?
Well, I think that Nick Saban in the past has forgiven some of the personal issues, of course, to bring aboard certain coaches that have been fired. But the only thing different with Hugh Freeze, I believe, is he was touched by the NCAA and the fact that he maybe committed some violations. I mean, he's been accused. So that's my only question of why would you bring on a coach that may be found to have committed major violations.
Now, I'll say one thing regarding that particular violation. As I understood it, and I could be wrong, Hugh Freeze was caught doing wrong, doing good. In other words, if you have a player who comes from a poor family, and let's face it, that is the case far more often than not in the SEC, and yet you're asking that person to play football, at some point, financially, they're going to need help. Am I speaking? Am I speaking?
Well, Zenny, I would say this, Zenny, but
okay.
You have access if you're eligible for the Pell Grant, which is about $5,500,
Mm-hmm.
and then they also started the total cost of attendance to last. Let me see, is it 3 years maybe? I can't remember. And every school is different. Where to give you an example, a school like Stanford, which it costs so much for the tuition,
yeah,
they have a low total cost of attendance because they don't want to pile on and tell the parents, well, it costs $70,000 plus another $10,000 that we didn't tell you about for the total cost of attendance.
Wow.
So they have some low figures where, for instance, Alabama's total cost of attendance right now, which are figures submitted by the university to the Department of Education in Washington, I think it's over $5,000. So if you're a student athlete at Alabama, then you're receiving $10,000, including the Pell Grant. Now, if you give that all away to somebody at home, you're always going to claim that I don't have any money. If I gave you $20,000, Zenny,
mm-hmm.
and you gave it to everybody at home,
mm-hmm.
you're always going to say, I don't have any money. I can't go out for a pizza.
Right.
So you hear that over and over again, and I'm thinking, well, you must be receiving approximately in the neighborhood of anywhere from $8,000 to $11,000 a year,
mm-hmm.
and your board and tuition is paid, and you're fed. Then they've changed that as well. They've allowed the schools to feed the student athletes more frequently. Let's say, what are you doing with $11,000?
Mm-hmm. And his answer would be, well, gee, playing pool is expensive, right?
Right. So, and then there's if say for instance you're in an area where you don't have a coat,
mm-hmm.
well, you can apply for funds to buy a jacket and clothing for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the NCAA Zenny, has not thousands of dollars, but millions of dollars in funds for various situations which you can apply.
Hey, so let me ask, but riddle me this though. Why not, having said all that, why is it not okay for the common football player to receive a simple salary in the same way that I received the salary when I worked in the post office at the University of Texas at Arlington, and they called that work study, even though I had no at all thought of managing a post office as being my objective after I received my 4-year bachelor's degree. You see what I'm getting at? I mean,
yes.
By contrast,
I mean, my feeling is, I mean, you're paying coaches to market value. I mean, Nick Saban's making $10-11 million with his bonuses and things.
mm-hmm.
So when Nick Saban is always asked about the salaries, he always uses the comment, "It is what it is," and then he always has he always presents the case that Alabama spends a lot of money investing in the student athlete. I mean, they have an unbelievable educational center where they have all the tutors,
sure.
and
mm-hmm.
and you don't put up a stadium like Bryant Denny is $100,000 and not have the cost to maintain those things.
Mm-hmm.
And then the football and mostly the basketball, if things are run properly and the teams are winning, you're paying for the men's golf team
mm-hmm.
to go to Pebble Beach, let's say, to play in a tournament. You're paying for the women's tennis team to go to New York City and play in a tournament. You're paying for the softball team. You're paying for the rowing team. You're paying for the track teams to go all over the country. let's say you go up to New York to the Melrose games, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But and then you have to pay the total cost of attendance. But it is a bloated system when you have a lot of administrators. I mean, if you looked at all the records, there might be, let's say, at a university, and of course California is different. Like the cost of attendance is varies much higher than most places, but you may have 15 or 20 people making over $100,000.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all kind of marketing departments. Who would ever thought you're going to have a marketing department for college athletics?
But in a sense, you're making my point for me, because you have the administrators making that money, and then you have, particularly in the SEC, a number of coaches that get NFL level compensation, but the student athlete might have access to these grants. Some of them don't know how to fill out the paperwork. Some do. Some get guidance. Some don't. Why not just simply pay them, $40,000, or pay them something like this, like $20,000 a year plus 50% of the merchandise sales from whatever jersey they happen to wear. That way, they don't feel like they're being taken, like Billy Sims did, because he said this, right? When he saw his jersey being sold, he wasn't making any money off of it. Why not do that? Why is it so important that the football player be uncompensated for the most part? Because arguably, considering the fact that a lot of these guys, young men, will not go on to the NFL and yet do sustain some bodily damage, why not give them something for their effort to take beyond college, save some money, because they may have a hard time getting a job once they get out in the real world. Alumni don't always take care of everybody, evenly. Why not do that?
Well, yeah, the world's not fair, and if you understand that point, then you can proceed in life. But to get to your point, I have not seen the exact model. What do you pay the third string guard? I mean, does everybody get the same? Because then what happens is then
the
star running back is saying,
but I have the answer.
Well,
I have the answer.
Everybody's coming here to see me. They're buying my jersey.
Yeah.
But the fourth string guard's getting the same as me. So then it becomes like a compensation situation where everyone's an employee. Then it gets really sticky and complicated, and nobody knows what they're doing.
Just like life, as you say. To answer your question, you simply have a tiered system. If you're third string, you don't get paid. Second string, you get paid something. First string, you get paid. That's it. That's the way you do it. I mean, and we have to do that because we're taking too many kids, particularly black, and we talk about this in Black History Month, who come from backgrounds, and they may come from a family unit that doesn't have a lot of money, and they watch television, and they expect their son to be that person who makes it to the NFL and then gets the big dollars. And so what happens is that we have this gigantic number of underclassmen leaving school early for the league with this idea of making big dollars, and the vast majority of them don't get that big money. And then on top of that, we have what we have today down here around the area that I am living in, part-time suburban Atlanta, where you have people training for that, you know what I'm talking about, regional combine or some other opportunity to get a chance to play in the National Football League that may never come. But the unanswered question is, how are you making your money, in the meantime? While I'm bagging groceries, I'm doing this. And my point is that if they were compensated at the college level, at least they would have an opportunity to save some of that money to get them over the hump so that they could get job training to learn a programming language or a skill, because we don't teach shop anymore, as you know, and gain a great position in society, or start their own business, get a venture capitalist or angel investor to put money in their firm, which could become the next Facebook or Apple or whatever. We deny them that opportunity when you just simply throw them out there and play for them, and you give them this sort of hullabaloo about what to expect in the future, when really they should be getting paid something right now. That's my point.
Here's what I would say, Denny. I think that people are just taking for granted the fact that if you attend the University of California, you attend Stanford, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the amount of money that it costs to get a degree from those schools is outrageous.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no way that somebody that you describe coming from the economic circumstances, it would take them 10 years to save up to pay for one semester.
Yeah.
So you said, you used the word opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
How many millions of young people would say, I will gladly trade places with you and play tennis to attend the University of California? I'm not going to complain about the scholarship. I'm not going to complain about the Pell Grant money or the cost of attendance. I would sign up for that deal in a heartbeat.
Right, except you use tennis as an example, not football. Why not?
Well, I'm using any sport. I'm
talking football.
But what I'm saying is, even the football. I mean, so that's your sport, football. So if you don't go to college on a football scholarship, if you think you're that good, I mean, if you want to play professionally, I don't know if Canada still takes high school players but there's always competition. That's what drives the system. I mean, if you think you're that good and can be paid, then find yourself a place where someone wants to pay you. But I think people take for granted that you're getting an education from, let's say, Stanford. I mean, that's like, if you stay 5 years, that's about $500,000.
Yeah, but the whole point, realistically, is Stanford, in terms of recruiting ranking, is what, number 39 and Cal's 43, and
right.
We have schools between number 1 and number 39 that, I'm sorry, they simply have degrees that are not worth the ink that they're written on, and that's just a fact. And so when you go there, but why does
that happen though? Because
but my point is, if you go there, but you go to that school. Let's take Central Florida, right? You go to school in Central Florida, and you go to school to play football. You should be, because if you go to Central Florida and you get a business degree, I'm sorry, you're not going to come out of there and march from Central Florida and work or expect to work at Apple Computer in Cupertino. It's just not going to happen. But so you play football, get compensated for not getting your head knocked around a bit for $20,000 a year, at the highest level, maybe $30,000 at the highest level, and have a tiered system. Okay, so you hit third string. I got news for you. You know this better as well as I do, better than I do, AP, because you cover football in that way. If you're third string, you're not going to see the field much anyway. So why would you ask to be compensated? But if you go from third string to second string to first string, different story. You're talking about compensating a hairpin-sized number of the total number of college football players out there. It's not every single one. But you should compensate the starters. You should compensate the people that you're making money off of on television and everything else. Because between coaches, assistant coaches, and the kind of head coaches like Nick Saban's got a $10 million annual salary, right? That's John Gruden territory. But we've come to the point where we can say, well, okay, John Gruden's salary is about equal to Nick Saban's. Okay, fine. That's fine for them. And then the coaches are coming up on the assistant level. But then you get to the players, and the players get nothing at the collegiate level. I'm sorry. It's not a matter of life not being fair. That's immoral. Okay? That's beyond. That's beyond not fair. That's immoral.
They do get something. They do get something.
What?
They get the amount that I told you. They get the Pell Grant plus the total cost of attendance, whatever number is deemed by the school, which has nothing to do with the athletic department.
The Pell Grant
the total cost of attendance.
The Pell Grant
is something. The total cost of attendance is something that's divided by the school and given to the Department of Education of Washington. It has nothing to do with that.
I hear what you're saying, but the Pell Grant, because I've had one, it comes with strings attached, okay? I'm talking about giving them free and clear cash, just like you are on a job. And again, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that?
Pell Grant. What's attached to the Pell Grant?
Oh my goodness, there's all kinds of things you can't do with a Pell Grant. There's restrictions on it. I've forgotten exactly what they were, but they're restrictions. if I get a simple paycheck from an employer, there's no restriction on that. Okay? So, I mean, it's a paycheck for work well done. Again, I ask you, what is wrong with that at the collegiate level? What's wrong with it?
Yeah. The only thing I never heard anybody say anything about the Pell Grant, because the athletes, they can't work on campus. I mean, so they get the Pell Grant. I mean, that's put in their pocket, and the total cost of attendance, there's no restrictions on that. And then as far as paying them more money, yeah, you could do that. But my point being, Zenny, is you could give them $20,000 each player, and they would always say it's not enough.
Well,
it's never enough.
That's their problem.
That and this idea about paying starters, I mean, you can't. It's just not going to happen where you're treating one student athlete at the university different than the others. It's not going to happen.
But we do. Whoa, my friend, my longtime friend. There is one example that proves you wrong, and it's the term big man on campus. If everybody's treated fairly, there's no such thing as a big man on campus. How do you get? No.
Right? I'm talking about the pure dollars and cents. In other words,
that's what I'm talking about, though. That's what I'm talking about.
The tennis player gets the same as the football player.
No, but what I'm talking about
there's no difference.
Actually, there is a difference if you talk. That's why we had Title IX, so there is a difference. But my point is that there is a massive difference in terms of who we value in their play on campus. Otherwise, there would be no such thing as the star on campus, the big man on campus, the killer, the Wonder Woman, all these, right?
What's the difference that the tennis player receives versus a football player? What is that difference?
Well, in terms of, you look at it from merchandise sales, it's huge because at Cal.
No. I'm not talking about merchandise. I'm talking about the room, tuition, and board, and the total cost of attendance.
That's cost. I'm talking about compensation. And what I'm saying is that, and when I say compensation, I'm saying this. All right, the college.
No, I understand that, but I mean, you said there was a difference in how they're treated.
There is a difference.
There's no difference in what the tennis player receives versus the football player.
No, but you're confusing costs. But you're confusing costs with revenue. Okay, I'm talking about revenue, and what I'm saying is that in revenue.
Well, revenue is something different. That's completely different. I mean, that's a whole subject. Different subject matter.
But AP, that is the solid part of it, because revenue is the basis by which you value everything from a business standpoint in life. When we talk about franchise value in the National Football League, what measure do you use to evaluate franchise value? But you take the operating income times a factor of 4, okay? That's how you do it. And that gives you the franchise value for pick the team, okay? But again, what's the basis? It's revenue. What's the basis for determining? Okay, wait, hold on a second. Hold on a second. What's the basis for determining what a player brings in on the collegiate level? Hey, how much did that jersey sell for? It sold for X. Do you find anybody out there buying a jersey or anything that a tennis player wore at the collegiate level? The answer is no. Absolutely not.
No. But what I'm saying is the football team normally and the basketball team normally, they're paying for everybody. They're paying for all the other sports. They're paying not only the players, they're paying for the coaches. In other words, instead of Nick Saban getting $10 million, he could gobble up all the salaries of the tennis coach, the track coach, the women's basketball coach, the rowing I mean, so everybody shares in that model. I mean, that's the collegiate model.
They don't. In fact, I wrote about this way back in SF Gate, and someone regurgitated what I wrote years later and basically pointed out that I said that, hey, if we didn't pay certain of the higher sports, we could then divert money to the lower sports, because we had that kind of problem at Cal where we have football and basketball making more money than the other sports. And someone's would say carrying, but here's the dirty little secret. That money doesn't see the money that women's tennis needs and the other women's sports. Guess what? And this is particularly true prior to Title IX. They didn't see the riches that the men's sports generated at all. And then if you take a sport like at Cal, men's rugby has at one point had an annual $5 million alumni endowment from its alums because they're all rich, okay? Women's sports didn't see that. So my point is that if you take the entire situation, all right, and you look at football and you say, hey, football's making all this money. Football's making so much money that not only could it share it with the lower sports, which is one issue, it can also afford to pay its own players and treat them with a remuneration that is equal to the value that those players bring to the university and to their squads and to the tradition of that school by what they do. And right now that doesn't happen. And I don't care what anyone says, there is no way to defend that at all. I don't care if it's tradition. There are some traditions that need to just go away. That's one of them. Pay them. Pay them what they're worth and what they give to the school so that we don't have Ed O'Bannon running to court and winning in court, I might add. Forget that. He won, okay? And then not compensating the players and finding some creative way around it when at some point this crap's going to hit the fan again and they're going to be worth coughing it up. What you don't want, AP, is a situation where someone comes up with a creative legal attack and the colleges are forced to cough up money that is claimed that they owed from years past. And that could be well into the billions. All right? And that's the situation that's being set up here by maintaining this stupid tradition. And it really is stupid. There is no logical reason to do what is being done, which is not compensating just a handful of players, star players. It's just not happening. It should happen, but it's not. And yet, you've got coaches that have these revolving doors from pros and back. It's crazy.
I haven't heard a model that anybody suggested it's viable. And then the other thing, when you spoke about the athletic department, the women's teams or the baseball team, let's say, not seeing any of the funds. I mean, at Alabama, when the women's basketball team travels to a game, they use the university jet, which the basketball team uses as well. So, I mean, that's something specific to that athletic department. That's that they don't share in all the amenities that are available to the student athletes. I can't speak to that, but the smart athletic departments, they're not going to show favoritism to one team over the other, because the word is going to get out, because there's going to be some school that treats everybody almost on a pretty even level. So they're going to say, well, hey, at Alabama, we fly, the women's basketball team, we fly to all the games on our personal jet. And if you're at another school, pick XYZ school, and says, well, we have a personal jet. The men's basketball team uses it, but the women's team, we go in a rented van. I mean, it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen, because you're trying to compete. You're trying to compete. So right, athletic department's not sharing in the amenities. I don't understand.
My point is that I'm sticking singularly on what got me here in terms of this argument. Athletes should be compensated. They should be allowed.
Yeah, I mean, we could argue about this forever, but like I said, show me a model that works, and we'll talk. I'll
show you one. Hey, I gave
another
you
discussion.
Okay, we got
it. The model. The model. I mean, it has to be very specific.
I'll give it to you again. You pay the player 50% of the merchandise sales that person generates year to year. That's what you pay them. That's fair. That's fair, because you know what? Their jersey may sell beyond their college years, and they may find themselves at a time when they need that money. And
So let me ask you this. Let me ask you this scenario first. Let me just interrupt you for a second. Then.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You have the number 2. Somebody's a star, is a senior. The next year they bring in a freshman. The guy leads the team in pass receiving.
Okay.
Who's getting the money? The guy who left, or the guy who's there as a freshman?
The person who gets the money is split up in 2 ways under my model. If you started for that year, you got your $20,000, okay, plus 50% of whatever merchandise sales were generated that year. If your jersey is still being sold the next year, you get 50% of that sale for that year as well. In other words, what this guarantees is a model such that beyond your years, if your jersey...
How do you figure that out, Tenny? I mean, how do you figure out if 10 people were in a store, they both buy number 2? Is it for the number 2 that's a freshman, that's a star, or it's for number 2 who was a senior last year who left?
It doesn't matter, because the whole point is that if I go in, I want to buy a Russell White jersey from USC, I go out and say, hey, look, and I can buy a Russell White excuse me, from Cal, I can buy the Russell White jersey, and everybody knows it's Russell White. So that's designated. That designation.
Well, how is it designated?
You go to Cal and you buy it. It's Russell White. It's his number, number 5. It was number 5 from that year. It's Russell White. It's on there on the tag. You can go over on Bancroft College and buy it.
Yeah, but I mean, does it have his name on the back, or I mean,
yeah, it has.
How do you know it's Russell White? How do you know it's not the freshman who came in who's the big star that year?
It has his name. It has his name on that. That's designated. That's on the sale ticket. Okay, it's not like you're buying it and you're doing it blind. Otherwise, there's no value to it. That's which brings up the point. Okay, that specific jersey, that jersey model from that year, that name, that's the Russell White jersey. So that has a value. And so because it's attached to the performance of a particular player who by his name we both acknowledge is a star, that person should get 50% of the revenue from the sale of that jersey. And that, just like being compensated for being on a movie or television show, they call it residual payments, should be the way to go in the future. And you know what?
Yeah,
no one gets harmed.
Yeah, I understand the concept, but administering it,
it's easy.
I don't think it's that easy.
Oh, it's very easy. It's done every day. You and I are talking about this right now, and someone's getting compensated residuals. They're getting compensated percentages for what they're owed for anything. I pay percentages for people that vlog for me. Okay? It's on there. If someone makes a vlog for me, we have it in our agreement that they get 50% of the money that generates from ad revenue through its life. That's it. Sometimes, most of the time, it's like cents on the dollar, but it's there. That's easy to calculate. I can do that in a second.
Yeah. That's easy. Well, I'm just saying, Denny. I mean, it sounds like it's a plan, but these people spend, hours and months and years trying to figure out a way to compensate players that, that they can be administered and can be practical, and nobody's come up with anything yet.
No, they can do it if they want to. There's just no want to. I mean, that's the model.
Well, I mean that's on one side. That's on one side thing. But there's a whole group of people on the other side that are trying to get it done. They can't get it done. I haven't seen it presented anywhere. I mean, the fellow who was the former linebacker at UCLA. I mean, he's been the champion for the players of getting better health care, some other situations. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't think even he's presented a plan where they can get paid.
But he hasn't presented a plan because he hasn't put anything on pen and paper or model. The point is this. I'll make it really simple. If you want to do something, you do it even as a test. Someone around could say, we'll do this as a test and see how this works. We'll compensate by merchandise sales, a combination of a base pay and merchandise sales for starters, And not only that, you know what? We can adjust the cost of buying the jersey to make up for the percentage if they feel like we might lose something. And then it would force the marketing department at the athletic program, wherever we're talking about, to really do its job and better market its athletes, not just for the Heisman, but in terms of jersey and merchandise sales to begin with. So it turns out to be a win-win-win for everybody if you do it the way that I'm saying. Now, just because no one's done it doesn't mean it can't be done. It just means that I'm a lot smarter than a lot of other people.
Well, yeah, I mean, you should present it to somebody then.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's not a hard thing to do. It's just a matter of want to. Now, in terms of what injustices somebody might think the person will do and all this, I'm not buying it, okay? The one thing that I know is that I hear it again and again and again. The students feel like they're being exploited. This is the best way to take that argument away from them. They're not being exploited. And if they get under my system, and if they get into a football organization or tennis or any organization at any level, then it brings home the fact that college athletics today is truly a business that should go to benefit everyone, most notably its players. And right now it doesn't do that, in my view. I think we ought to take the show on the road.
I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't see it, because what you're going to develop is a system where one player, let's say a star halfback, people buy his jersey, and the guard blocking for him, he's not going to be compensated because nobody's going to buy his jersey. When people buy a jersey,
well, here's the thing.
They're going to buy a jersey of the star running back and the quarterback. Here's
where I completely disagree with that, and in my view, that's totally wrong. First of all, under my system, the starters get a base pay. The third stringers don't. The second stringers get maybe half or 50%. We evaluate them. Oh, I'm not done. I'm not done. I'm not talking about. Wait. I'm not talking about what's not going to happen. I'm saying what they should do. There's a difference. My point is this: if in terms of,
but I don't subscribe to that.
But I do.
I don't subscribe to that.
I do.
I don't at all.
And that's why I say the system is messed up. I do subscribe to it. And my point is that in terms of the guard that you're talking about, the athletic department can market that guard as the person that blocked, and guess what? Their sales go up. You know why? It's in the interest of the athletic department to do that, because the athletic department makes money as well. So again, it's a win-win-win, what you're saying. There's no unfair treatment here under the system that I've crafted and presented to you. It's perfect, and it should be done, and it will work. Everybody will be happy. I guarantee it. Hey, he didn't respond. I think I won the debate. Just kidding.
No, I just let you talk there. That's all. But I mean, I don't buy what you're selling. I just don't buy what you're selling.
Well, but here's the thing.
I don't think it will happen. I don't think it would work. I don't think it's viable. I don't think it's practical.
It's viable.
And
it's practical.
There's always somebody willing to take that scholarship. If you don't want to play football, no problem. There's about 1,000 people right behind you that say, man, I'll take that scholarship.
Yeah, but in today's world, the scholarship is not enough, and you and I both know it, and my system is perfect. And if you and I were on the debate cycle, I beat you by a factor of 10. I'd get standing ovation in the audience. Doesn't matter if it was 5 people or 500 or 5,000. They would be a standing ovation for my idea, and you know it.
Yeah, but Zenny, it's too simplistic an idea. It's a very complicated.
You're right. It's a simple idea. It's
a simplistic remedy. Life is not that simple.
And here's where
you're life is not that simple. And like I said, why should I pay money when you got 1,000 people in line to take that same position?
And here's where you're incorrect, my friend. In every complex system of which we're talking about, there are a set of drivers, a few variables that you control or shift that then causes that system to behave, in this case, much better. And all I'm saying is the perfect system, the perfect change, the perfect way of leveraging those drivers is to have a percentage sale of merchandise that then goes to the star athlete that wore that jersey, that particular player who that jersey is assigned to. That's the way to do that. And have it done for all sports. And have an athletic department with a stronger marketing department that can market these players and further advance the legacy of Stanford, Cal, Alabama, Notre Dame. You have it. The system of the future is what I'm talking about, and it's doable and it works. And I'm telling you, if I take this on the circuit and you and I debate at Carnegie Hall, they'll love me. They'll want me as mayor of New York. Hell, they want me as president of the United States. That's right.
Yeah, but Zenny, saying that the crowd loves your idea, I mean, that doesn't have any merit.
Of course it does. It's the crowd value.
I mean, I'm sure there's people that you can be in a crowd and they don't want people to come to this country either. I mean, I'm sure that you would get people that have a standing ovation for that as well, but that doesn't make it right or have merit.
Of course it does. It's simple. It's for the people. It's right. Everybody in the audience has sons and daughters that are great at sport that they want to see fairly compensated. This is that system. They would love it and they would back it. And not only that, other than, you haven't presented an argument telling me, and that's why I'm saying we should take this on the road as a debate, telling me where it really won't work. other than, you know, the idea of the homespun tradition and all that. It's like, yeah, okay, fine. No, it doesn't have anything to do with, in fact, an indictment against my idea. In fact, my argument is this: it would further enhance the tradition of the college because the athletic marketing department would have to sell the tradition as part of the process of selling the merchandise around these star athletes. It would be beautiful. It would be stupendous, humongous. I can see it now. I can see it. I can see it totally dominating the landscape in terms of star athletes being compensated at the collegiate level, stars well into their future, even after their years, and still able to make money fairly on what they've done. That's a beautiful thing, AP. You got to admit, that's a beautiful thing.
So let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. What do you consider the scholarships that they receive now? I mean, what do you consider that?
I consider them precisely that. I don't consider them the kind of pay and compensation I'm talking about, because it's not. I mean, I'm not saying you get away. It's not either or.
To attend Stanford or Cal, $50,000 a year, $70,000. You don't think that's worthy? You don't think that's of value at all?
I didn't say that. I said that it has its place as a scholarship, but I'm talking about compensation for the person as a star, and that under the system. Oh, hold on a second. You asked the question. I'm answering it. Under the system, the very elegant system I have described to you, the ability of that player to grow and enjoy the fruits of their labor is not limited. A scholarship has a limit. It has a monetary limit. It's not the same. A scholarship is not designed to compensate a specific player that way. That's not the point of a scholarship. So therefore, the idea of taking away a scholarship is not part of this. The scholarship and its structure remain. This is brand new. This is brand new.
Yeah, I don't see it. I don't see it happening.
I'm not saying it will happen, but I'm saying it should happen. So you're talking about what people will do, and I'm talking about what they should do. There's a difference.
I understand my language. I understand English. What I said. I'm just telling you, Denny. I don't think it's going to happen.
But it should happen.
I'll stand by my statement. And as far as, like I say,
but you gotta
no matter what you give a player, Zenny, no matter what you give a player, and I stand by that. I stand by this statement as well.
All right.
No matter how much you paid someone, there would always be somebody among those athletes who would always come back and say it's not enough.
Let them challenge that system. But you know what? Since this system was challenged to right or wrong and inequity, they would be hard pressed to come up with a reason why my system doesn't help them. And not only that, here's the other issue. No. I'm gonna cut you off. I'm not gonna cut you off because you let me finish. Because here's the problem. Okay, here's the problem with that person that advanced the argument. They would then have to be under indictment for what they didn't do in college under performance. It would be just like at the NFL when a player has to meet the general manager and discuss his contract, okay? And then it's like, hey, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, and the other thing. It would be the same way. And in that example, I still win. In fact, I win big time.
Bring up was the fact that you talked about jersey sales.
Yep, that's right.
Okay.
Yep, that's right.
Right. Okay. So the player who has somebody in their ear is going to say, yeah, that's nice. I'm getting a percentage of the jersey. How come I'm not getting a percentage of the tickets? How come I'm not getting a percentage of the parking? How come I'm not getting a percentage of the concessions?
Well, actually,
how come I'm not getting a concession of the coaches' show? Because I'm on the show. I'm on the TV show.
With the exception of the coaches' show, that's different. You're mixing apples and oranges here business-wise. I'll tell you why. First of all, coaches' shows are generally paid for by sponsorships, all right? Move that aside. My point is that in order to be able to pay the first-tier players, we would need a percentage of the ticket sales. That's why. We would need part of that source. But also, because we have the athletic department and its beefed-up marketing program, it could then broaden its reach in terms of who can sponsor or offer a sponsorship payment at different price levels. Maybe they have a level for small companies like mine where I could pay 1,000, or maybe somebody else like a bigger company like yours can pay 10,000. That sort of thing. My point is that this entrepreneurial approach benefits the player regardless of where they are in the totem pole. All they have to do is perform and get to where they're first string or second string, and play their tails off. That's the idea. How you doing on time, by the way?
Yeah, fine. Yeah, I'm fine, but I'm still not buying the argument because there's always somebody that's going to be in their ear saying, "I want a percentage of all these other things." I mean, I want more than just my jersey percentage. I want all these other things as well.
And they would not get it.
Like I say, it's never enough. It's never enough, and it's always more complicated. It's just not that easy.
No, that's no reason not to do anything. Under your logic, we shouldn't even have any kind of compensation system because someone always complain about it.
No. I didn't say that. I mean, I'm happy that they're paying them the total cost of attendance. I'm happy that they've been given the Pell Grant, and I'm happy they're giving them the room, tuition, and board. And I'm always for as much as the players can be compensated.
G. Taylor asked a question. He says, "Any thoughts on Daron Payne?"
What about him? Oh yeah, he asked me a question about him.
Yeah, he's asking.
Oh yeah, he was a very good player since day one. As a matter of fact, I was at his high school the day he signed. I covered that event, and he was a good football player. Clogged up the middle, took up 2 blockers, and he got better as a pass rusher. But I think he's going to be a really nice pro.
And I took that just out of fairness. It doesn't mean that because I took the question, I'm not done beating the tail out of my friend in terms of this argument.
In your own mind, that's fine.
Hey, that's where it starts, though, right?
That's fine.
That's where it starts. It's got to start somewhere. That's where ideas start, in the mind, right? And this is, I am absolutely certain that in my mind, this is the best idea since sliced bread because it is. It will work.
Well, I would say this. People, they're buying sliced bread. Nobody seems to be buying your idea as of yet. But I'm not giving up hopes any.
No, I'm gonna put it out there and see. Oh, and G. Taylor asks, how does Payne compare to Darius? He has another question. He said, how does Daron Payne compare to Darius? That's G. Taylor here on the chat line.
Okay, yeah, you're talking about Marcel Darius. Oh, yeah. Marcel was a slightly bigger player. He was in his height, and Daron's Daron's about 6', so I think Darius around 6'4" or so, 6'5", probably about 6'4". But he's more flexible because he can play on the outside a little bit if need be in the 3-4, whereas Daron really, I think, is more the nose guard type.
Oh, right. Hey, so it is now 12:29, and I think I know we've had a very lively debate that I've won.
Oh, yeah. Zenny, do you have to put on the judge's collar to make that statement, or you just make it without putting on the judge's collar?
Oh, you mean like Flip Wilson used to do back in the day, like that kind of shit?
Right. In other words, at least you can do me the courtesy of putting on the judge's collar, so I don't feel that I'm getting due justice. I mean, I want a judge to sentence me at least.
Oh, the only thing is, wait, what was that song? It was, yay he, the quarters swing, and I'm just about ready to do that thing. I ain't got no tears, I ain't want no lies. Most of all, I ain't want no alibis. This judge is hip, and that ain't all. He'll give you time if you're big or small. So right on. So fall in line. This court is neat. And they say, right on. Here come the judge. Here come the judge. Everybody know that I am the judge. Too much fun.
Yeah, but like I said, then if somebody comes up with you mean that's your plan, but if somebody presented it, I'm sure that, for instance, the schools who have the overflow of money, they would be glad to part ways with some of it. But and I think that it's those Power Five conferences that have the money and the TV money and the revenue from the sales of tickets and television and marketing and because they knew they had to do something. That's why they came up with the total cost of attendance, because the engineering student had a better deal on campus. The ballerina had a better deal on campus. The good chemistry student had a better deal on campus than any football player, because they were paid the total cost of attendance all these years.
But if I think of a player, if I think of a team, if I think of SC, I think of Sam Donald, I think of Ronnie Lott, I think of any college football organization in particular. When you think of the organization, you think of the program, certain players come to mind. And under my system, those players will be fairly compensated through their lifetimes for the value that they bring to that program.
They would be compensated. Whether it's fair, I'm not positive, but they would be compensated.
I think it'll be a lot better than it is now, because my point is...
Well, yeah, zero. Anything better than zero is more.
Yeah, and you got to have a percentage. You have to have a system that, and I go back to what I said before, forces the athletic department's marketing organization to work on behalf of the player in a way that it doesn't have to do today. And under my system, it would quite literally sell the players. I could see where, in an effort to advance the proper marketing of the player, the athletic department would get the collegiate player in movies, okay, much as their agents do on a pro level. But that's what we're talking about. It would take a wholesale realization of the market we have today that we're creating for players at the college level, and how we're not allowing those players to access that market, which in and of itself is criminal. And that's got to change. I mean, we are in an internet era, and yet we're asking everybody to live under rules that are crafted in a pre-internet era. That in and of itself makes no sense whatsoever. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that if you look at a video on YouTube, many times we identify how good we think a player is by what we see in one video on YouTube. I'll give you a star example of what I'm talking about, and that was the Rose Bowl, where the great South Carolina defensive end, who became the NFL draft first round pick, cracked Michigan's running back so hard that his helmet flew off, and that person went from being unknown to known overnight. And then we all had to figure out how to pronounce the name Jadeveon Clowney. Remember that? If it were not for that YouTube video, AP, no one would have ever heard of Jadeveon Clowney. And you can't tell me that somebody didn't go out that week and start buying Clowney jerseys.
Excuse me.
Bless you. So my point is, under my system, that person gets compensated. And then not only that, my argument with Clowney is that had it not been for that hit on video, on YouTube, if YouTube didn't exist, Clowney does not get first round, he does not get number one pick status. That would not have happened. But that marketed him. Bless you. That marketed him. You see what I'm getting at? It put him out there.
Yeah.
And that happens.
That's debatable. I mean, that's debatable.
I'm not saying he wasn't good.
Whether he was drafted number one or not, that's debatable. But I mean, we had this conversation about him, I think, one other time. Mm-hmm. His senior season, I think he came out as a junior, I believe. Mm-hmm. But he has, I think, three sacks, and one of them was early in when the Clemson quarterback, I think, ran into him. Yeah. So here's a guy with 3 sacks, and you're saying how great he is. And I'm thinking, Derek Thomas had 27 sacks as a senior and 18 as a junior. Right. And he was complaining about how I was being double teamed. I'm thinking, well, Derek Thomas at 18 as a junior, you don't think they knew him about as a senior? So what did he do as a senior? He had 27. He went above and beyond the 18. So he was portraying himself as being hampered because, they're double teaming me, and it was laughable. And somebody ended up picking him number one. I mean, how is he? I mean, I wouldn't have picked him number one because he didn't seem to. He didn't seem to play with 100% effort every game.
No, he didn't, and I'm agreeing with you. But I'm saying that, and that's why I say that were it not for the environment we live in today, which is to an extent YouTube driven, and this goes to my point about marketing. It wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, but I don't think
he wouldn't have been picked
Scouts
number
don't
one.
look at one play. Scouts aren't looking at one play after they watched all of his composite record as a player at South Carolina. And say, I beat one play. You cracked this guy's helmet. I'm going to draft him number one. That's not.
No, scouts don't say that. No, I'm not saying scouts do, but I'm saying that today, because of the internet, you have draftnik after draftnik after draftnik who don't have the training of a scout, but have access to a blog, reposting this video to where it's seen several million times. And now the idea is, hey, you know what? You're an idiot if you don't take him because I saw him do this in this video. And I'm saying that from this perspective of what the person actually did, in this case, Clowney in college, right? It doesn't make any sense. But it is part of how we evaluate who's good and who isn't. And that's why, and I'm saying that we have to have a system of compensation, and going back to my player compensation idea, that respects the power of the internet in terms of marketing players. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, the only one that counts in the evaluation is the person making the selection.
Right, but
people involved in the selection. It has nothing to do with draftniks. They don't.
No, but
they're not in the equation. They're not even a variable.
But my point is that today's social media has an impact on the draft, whether we like it or not. It always has, since its advent, since its spread. And it impacts.
I disagree. I don't think it has at all. The strong scouts and general managers, they're not looking at any internet. They're watching the film and they're quizzing their scouts and they're getting the opinions, and they're not saying, wait, let's look at the internet. How many thousands of hits how many clicks did this play get on YouTube or
But my point
Twitter?
is that they don't look at that. But my point is that the communication back to the team is by the casual fan that sees this and says, hey, how come you don't draft this person? Or how come you don't draft that person? This suddenly,
and the smart general manager says, well, when you get a team and you're the general manager, you can draft who you believe has the most value.
Yeah, and so you know what happens?
That's the smart general manager. I mean, Coach Bryant was one of the first ones to have a call-in telephone show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, believe it or not, and somebody called up one time. He just riding him about certain things. Well, when you get yourself a college football team, you can make the decision.
Yeah, but that's Coach Bryant. But here's the problem. At the NFL,
so I mean, any smart general manager, he's not replying to somebody who's that's not his profession.
Yeah, but my point is, at the NFL, though, the general manager works for an owner, and the owner could very well be a beer and shot guy who made it and became a billionaire. And so if that person, that general manager, by not following what the fans think the general manager should do, walks a fine line, because if that person is wrong, no, hold on a second, I'm not finished. Yeah. I'm not finished. If that person is wrong about player X, Y, and Z, then there's a hue and cry, say fire that person, and then the owner, today more often than not, will step in and actually fire that person. We don't live in the time anymore of the Clint Murchisons who own the Dallas Cowboys, who no one knew what he looked like because he stood in the background and he didn't watch what was said about his team. We are in the era of the Jerry Joneses and everybody else.
You understand the internet, but I don't think that's relevant, because a general manager, he understands that his decisions will constitute if he's going to be staying around for any length of time. So he's not worried about XYZ fan. He's not worried about XYZ scout per se. I mean, he's the one in charge who has to listen to all his scouting department and come up with a decision. I mean, there have been times when a general manager, I'm sure his scouts said, we don't really believe he should be drafted, and the general manager went against them, and the player turned out fine. And I'm sure it worked in the opposite direction as well. So the general managers are not getting caught up in all this minutia. They don't have that much time to concentrate on all this outside influence. There's no way any serious general manager. I mean, they're so busy. When you talk to them, they're so busy looking at players and reading reports that they don't listen to that chatter.
Yeah, but
because they know if they listen to that chatter, they're going to be sitting in the stands with the rest of the fans.
But a lot of them already are, because in some cases they didn't listen to the chatter. Let me give you an example right now with the Raiders and Reggie McKenzie. There are people who want his head because, and I remember I saw Reggie, who I like a lot, at the NFL annual meeting, and I said, you know what? There's a guy at 24 that's going to be sitting right there that you should draft. Cam Robinson is going to start for you. And he said, okay. But instead of taking Cam at 24, and you were there, we were all scratching our heads, he turns around and makes this, rather Byzantine play for Galeon Conley, who winds up sitting on the bench, injured, okay? And we're all looking and doing this consistent watch on my live stream on a weekly basis. What's up with Cam? Cam's starting. Then Cam winds up in the AFC Championship game. Meanwhile, we're dealing with our legendary, but, a little up there in years, left tackle, Donald Penn, holding out. And Donald Penn would not have held out had we drafted Cam Robinson. But how do you evaluate how good Cam Robinson is, though?
You're looking for absolutes in life. There are no absolutes. I mean, that was opinion. I mean, he's paid to make the choice, and believe me.
But you're missing the point.
When you make a choice as a general manager, I mean, you realize that that's the way you feed your family. So it's in your best interest to make the smart decision in your mind.
But my point is that with the internet, it allows fans to crowdsource an idea of what a team should do, and more often that is arguably more efficient than what the general manager can do. And in this instance, there was a video of Cam Robinson ragdolling Myles Jarrett that went around several 100,000 times, okay? And that was why I, among a number of people who said this, hey, look, this guy is the guy you should get if you want to deal with a guy like Myles Jarrett, because he's going to be a star tackle in the National Football League. And I had people then telling me, nah, he's not so good. He had issue with marijuana. I said, look, that was something that was ridiculous. It shouldn't have happened. And not only that, has nothing to do with how good he is. And so he gets in the NFL, and what does he do? He starts, and he maintains his job, and he has great games, okay? And that's why
I understand that, Vinny. You keep bringing up the internet and fans watching,
right? Because that's
making complaints about a selection. But general managers, they have their own mind. That's why they're independent thinkers. They don't.
But any general manager,
let me get a consensus here from all these people who it's not their profession. They're relying on the people they hired to make the decisions, and then they're reading the information that's brought to them. They're using their own judgment. I mean, that's the reality.
Any general manager that doesn't pay attention
about the internet, it's irrelevant.
No, it's not.
It's not
no,
relevant
it isn't.
to the conversation.
No, it is. It's a science called the Delphi technique. It's not irrelevant at all. And I'm going to tell you something. Any general manager that doesn't pay attention to the Delphi technique should be fired tomorrow.
Well,
okay.
I don't think Bill Belichick is looking to drafting Julian Edelman and all these other type of players that nobody even realizes. That he's saying, well, I think let me look at the internet today and see if people agree with me to draft Julian Edelman.
How do you know he doesn't use it? How do you know he doesn't use it? He might.
How do you know he does?
I don't. You're the one saying that. You're the one implying that he doesn't.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll stand by my statement that I don't think he does.
I'll find out. That's worth following up because the Patriots are.
I would do that. I would do that. Come back and give me an answer on that one because I don't think that general managers are looking across the internet to someone they don't know and they don't trust and trying to come up with a decision that feeds their family. It's not logical.
It's logical to do it in a Delphi technique. Do you know what the Delphi technique is, by the way? No. Okay.
Is it related to Philadelphia? No.
No.
I just thought I'd throw a little bit of humor there, since it's Philadelphia's day, so
fly Eagles fly. No, the Delphi technique.
Fly Eagles fly.
The Delphi technique is simply it's crowdsourcing information around a question and then analyzing those answers and determining a best course of action based on what you got. It's called, some people call it in the modern day we call it crowdsourcing, but the Delphi technique was done even before the internet, where you get a bunch of people in a room and you survey them. But see, it's easy to do that now on a mass scale because of what the internet presents in social media by extension. So you can do it a lot more efficiently.
I've got to go pretty soon, Denny. But
okay.
So you're telling me you hire an entire scouting department,
mm-hmm.
and then you're not going to listen to their advice. You're going to go outside and listen to somebody else's advice.
No, I'm telling you that my modern scouting department understands the internet and the Delphi technique, and they have different ways of gathering information using the system that I'm talking about and using the internet so that we uncover in the modern age those diamonds in the rough. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah, but that's the responsibility in the first place.
Yeah, but I'm saying that they don't do it the way that I'm saying it. They're not doing it the right way. That's what I'm saying.
Oh. All right. Well, okay. Okay, then. All right. Okay.
You said one has to have confidence, right? Hey, I've got it. I know I'm right.
Yeah. I guess I guess it takes me back to the story. Coach Bryant was out duck hunting with John McKay, and he shot the gun.
Mm-hmm.
And there are 3 ducks flying, and they continued their path in the sky. And he turned to John McKay and said, "There flies a dead duck." I guess, I mean, that's the kind of confidence you have, I guess. The duck's flying, and you thought you shot him.
Hey, that,
but,
you know what?
That's confidence, I guess. I mean, but yeah, that's what he said to John McKay. You know, they were good friends. He said, "There flies a dead duck."
Well, hey, how about the confidence of Babe Ruth calling his shots, right? So there we go. That's confidence too.
Yeah, but that actually happened.
Right. I know. So did Babe Ruth.
yeah. That's what I'm saying. That actually happened.
Right.
In other words, he actually hit the home run, whereas
right.
Coach Bryant didn't shoot the duck.
That's
what he said.
Why,
but
right.
I mean, that's the confidence level he had. Even though he didn't shoot the duck, he said, "There flies a dead duck." I mean, even when he tried to accomplish a task and didn't, he felt confident that he did. So that's my point.
I get you, but I like Babe Ruth better.
Yeah, because he actually hit the home run. Yeah,
exactly.
Hit the home run.
And he said,
yeah, that's tangible. That's something you could. Yeah. That's a fact, a tangible fact. But Denny, I've got to
all
get
right,
going.
Man.
I've enjoyed it as always.
Like I said, we got to take the show on the road.
You got to take your plan to Indianapolis so you could become the slice bread too.
All right.
And make a lot of money, and you can invite me out to dinner. And we'll have some bread.
You got it, Don. You got it. Done.
Okay, Denny.
Hey, thanks.
We'll talk to you later.
It's a lot of fun, man.
Okay.
All right, fast forward.
Oh yeah, it was fun.
Hey, folks.
Okay,
hey, AP. Tell them how to find your stuff. By the way.
Oh yeah, I'm Bam Online. I do some videos and things, and you could always Google me and find stories I've done in the past. And during the football season, I'm on the radio across the state of Alabama and Pensacola, and we're trying to make that network bigger. So hopefully I'll be able to report something down the road here.
And you're at AP Steadham on Twitter, right?
Right, yeah. AP Steadham on Twitter. They can check with me there, and that would be great. It's always nice to have people follow you, and if they have some questions, just reach out, and I'll see if I can answer them.
You got it. Hey, AP, great debate. We'll continue it very soon. I can't wait.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Okay, then.
Okay.
And thank you and your audience. Thank you very much for being on the show.
All right, I'll see you. Okay.
Yeah, bye-bye now.
Right,
bye-bye now.
Okay, see you. That was one of the more lively conversations I've had with my friend, longtime friend AP Steadham. We go back to 2005 NFL draft. And for those of you who are just coming in, like John Marks, hey, how are you? I'm going to stop at 1. We started at, we're supposed to start at 10:30. I had a technical issue, so we didn't start until 10:51. So we've gone on 10:51, 11:51, 12:51 will be 2 hours. And that's just 2 minutes, 1 minute from now. So, but what we were arguing about, what happened was that we were talking about the, by the way, the Warriors beat the Mavericks 121-103. And we were talking about the oh, Go CSU is on. Yeah, go and he go and check him out. I'm about to stop soon, but maybe I'll go in and check him out too. But what we were talking about, we were arguing about whether or not players should be paid in college, right? And that's how that started, and I won the argument. You can roll back and find out if you think that I won, because it's wrong for, particularly at the football level, for Nick Saban to pull in $10 million a year, John Gruden of the Raiders is pulling in $10 million a year, about to, and you have assistants pulling in what, $2-3 million a year, and then that's true at the collegiate level, and yet the players see nothing other than a Pell Grant. That's ridiculous. And yet they have these jerseys and they make all this money, okay? And as John Marks has just wrote, I think college players need to get paid. And that's exactly the basis of our argument. And the idea I came up with was a combination of a base pay for a starting player, regardless of position, and say maybe half that or percentage for the second tier, and third tier doesn't get anything, because look, third tier doesn't see this field much anyway, right? And then on top of that, if you're the starter and you have a jersey, you're able to make money from the sale of that jersey. So if you have in fact, you would be able to make money from the sale of that jersey, period. And if you get to a point as a star where let's say you're the 4-year starter, okay? And it's obvious that you're the starter of the first year, second year, first year of the starter, you get locked in by the end of the year. You look at your jersey sales and people say, oh, gee, I want that guy's jersey. So we have to go back into your records and say, for that year, all right, you sold this much. It was obvious that you made money for us because of these sales. You get 50% of the sales, something like that, right? And you're off from there, all right? And John Marks is writing that Cal Bears need to adopt pay scale for their players. Everybody does. In my view, allowing a player to make a percentage, 25%, 50%, maybe 25% is considering the cost fair. But yeah, I think it should be 50% myself. But, and if there's a concern regarding the loss of revenue for the athletic department, you can simply up the price of the jersey or have it scaled, right? In other words, yeah, do it that way. Have it scaled. Or maybe it's just say, you know what, you get 30%, leave it at that. I think that's fair. 30% for the player, and the rest for the college. And the player gets that percentage through their life. That's it. That's your jersey. And if we put your jersey on sale, the Russell White jersey, the Jason Kidd jersey, basketball, whatever. I want Jason Kidd's jersey. And you can buy it knowing that it's Jason Kidd's jersey. Jason Kidd gets 30% of that for life. All right? John Mark says, how about 40%? I don't have a quibble with the percentage. I think 50% is fair. What was going through my head is the cost of administering the program. Because you have to administer the marketing program to get people to want to buy it beyond what's done. Because right now, athletic departments are not actively marketing a specific per-player jersey, okay? And maybe we should go a step further and put the names of the players on the jersey. How about that? I think that should be part of it. Then you have a beefed-up marketing department for the athletic program, both male and female. If I want to buy a sweater with a star swimmer on it, her name, and I want to buy that for my, I want to buy that, say I'm a supporter, or maybe my daughter wants a sweater, maybe a fashion line that they have, they should be able to buy that. That's all I'm saying. All right, folks, it's 12:54. I'm going to bid you adieu. You say Go Warriors is on. Go over and go what? Go CSUs. Sorry. Warriors, CSU. Anyway, go check them out. I'll go over and check them out as well. But I will see you all. It's been fun. It's been a great 2 hours. John Mark says You can bet your last money it's all been a Stone Gas Honey. In this case, it really has. Watch horror films and do keep America strong. I'll see you on Sunday. All right, see you guys. See everybody. See ya.